Live, okay?
Okay, so should I go ahead first, or will you go ahead and let me take it away from here? Should I start, Rishabh?
Okay.
শুরু হচ্ছে। Hi folks, am I audible? Yes, no, via the comments would be great. Okay, so I'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes so that more folks can join in, and then we can start. Yeah, so if you hear any thunder or lightning strikes in between, so know that currently the place where I live in, there's no electricity. Also, I'm on my laptop with 30% charge and 3G connectivity, fortunately. So I just wanted to do this session because of the participants, because I did not want to make you guys feel otherwise. So that's why I wanted to come and say hi to all of you. So if in between my connection uh, gets off, so know that it's because of uh, either of the reasons. My charge might have gone down, or because of the internet connectivity. So thanks for your cooperation in advance, and again thanks again for joining today. So I'll wait for 1 more minute for the folks to join in, and then we can start. So another point, I will anyway share the deck link with you beforehand, so that you can refer to it whenever needed. So yeah. Okay, I'll not waste any more of your time. Let me quickly share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? So Hitesh, this is not going to be any particular project. This is more of like the tips and tricks you should keep in your mind while executing your first machine learning project. I guess the title is clear. Okay, so before I take any questions, let me start. Thank you. Okay, so just to set the tone right, before I start talking, just to set the expectations right in the very first place. So this talk is not about the folks that are yet to start in the field of machine learning, but I believe the talk will be beneficial for the ones that have already started learning the topic and are looking for ways to build their first capstone project, which they can showcase and also include in their resumes and curriculum vitas or whatever. So uh, just keep in mind, you should have already started learning machine learning. So make sure you have that prerequisite set already. Okay. So introducing myself, I'm Shayok. I'm a deep learning associate at PyImage Search. I work at the intersection of computer vision and deep learning. And of the work, I really enjoy writing technical articles and speak at developer conferences, meetups, and also online sessions like this. So yeah, I hope this session is going to be useful for you. Okay, so here's the agenda of the session. So we'll be discussing about ways to put together your first project in machine learning. So how to think about the problem statement for your project, what are the critical things to consider for the project. So while you are in the execution phase of your project, what are the kinds of things you should be caring about. So things like this basically. So what motivated me to put together this talk was my own experiences. So I got introduced to machine learning in late 2015. It came with my curriculum. There was this subject called pattern recognition. So I was fortunate enough to be eligible for taking that subject. So that was how my introduction to machine learning was. So yeah, so this is kind of an amalgamation of all my experiences that I have gathered over the years, and I genuinely feel this is going to be helpful for you folks. So yeah. So another part of the motivation comes from this fella. Uh, so this fella, no, fella might be an underrated word or an underrepresentation of this guy. So Francois Chalet is the author of the deep learning framework called Keras. He is also a software engineer at Google. I really admire this guy. So the motivation behind putting together this talk also comes from here. So the tweet reads, I think an important part of life satisfaction is to find the things that really motivate you and pursue them uncompromisingly. You won't do great work by constantly forcing yourself to do things that don't genuinely excite you. And the second part of this trade is more important. If you haven't found it yet, keep exploring. So the takeaway here is to be able to execute your project with utmost conviction. You should be really loving the subject, otherwise you won't be able to put together anything constructive or anything accomplishing. So don't try to force fit anything into your learning curriculum. Make sure you are really enjoy the things that you are learning and stuff. And of course, if you haven't found that yet, if you haven't found your conviction yet, keep exploring. So that's the idea. So, okay, we will first be discussing the challenges of executing your first machine learning project. So here's the first challenge. So these challenges are not very specific. These are more generic. So I believe this would be applicable to a broad set of audience. So the first challenge is, how much should I know before I start my machine learning project? And this applies to not just your first project, but any project in general, right? Because machine learning is highly interdisciplinary. You cannot just know about programming and start right away. You need to know certain other things as well, like statistics, some portion of data science, some portion of linear algebra, some portion of differential calculus, so on and so forth. So the question that often gets asked is, how much exactly should I know before I start the project? Should I absolutely need to know everything, or how does it work basically? So we'll get to that, no worries. And again, as I mentioned, machine learning is interdisciplinary, so how to not get overwhelmed, right? Because you would need to focus on statistics, you would need to focus on some data science, you would need to focus on linear algebra and whatnot, right? And there might be moments that would be very much intimidating for you, that would make you feel overwhelmed. And believe me, that's a very hard, hard thing to avoid. Even to this date, I also get overwhelmed, but there are things which that you can consider to make your overwhelming feeling into positivity, in fact. So yeah, again, by developing a project, the broader goal would be to solve a problem. So what problem statement should do I choose for the project? Because to be able to stand out from the regular crowd, you would need to work on something that's exciting, that would help alleviating a certain kind of problem that the society might be facing, or anything else on those lines. But yeah, the problem should try to make the problem statement as unique as you can, right? But these are not all. We will get to that in much more details in a bit. And also, the traditional software engineering side of things can contain a lot of moving parts, and when machine learning gets added to the software engineering side of things, the number of moving parts just gets increased, right? So if there are lots of moving parts in your project, uh, which part can you take at one point in time and prioritize uh, on it, and avoid the rest of the other parts for the time being? So I think that was all for the generic challenges of executing your first machine learning project. Now, before I go to the solutions, before we go to the solutions, in fact, I would quickly like to check if we have any questions. So I like my sessions to be interactive. So if at any point in time, if you have any questions, please note them down. I'll try to get to as many as I can. So yeah, let's check if we have any questions. I'll give you 1 to 2 minutes to ask, but yeah, you can always ask me questions. I'll provide my coordinates in the end of the session so that you can reach out to me if needs be. Chintan asks TensorFlow JS versus TensorFlow normal. I guess if you are a web developer, definitely get started with TensorFlow JS. But if you are more on the machine learning side, you might be already knowing TensorFlow, the native framework. Maybe it will be a good time for you to explore TensorFlow JS to put together a nice machine learning powered solution. I hope that answers your question. Now let's proceed to the solutions. And again, these are my approaches, so it might not apply to yours, but I just wanted to give you the push. So the first challenge was, how much should I know before I start my machine learning project? So here's how I would approach it. You don't need to know absolutely everything before you start the project. Just the basic concepts should be enough to start off with. So when it comes to machine learning, really, even the definition of basic can be very relative to someone that's that is coming from industrial background, gradient descent might not be the absolute basic thing. And for someone that's coming from more of an academic background, who has already studied machine learning via an undergraduate level course, gradient descent might be the absolute basic thing. So I tend to go with the academic curriculum. So focus on the basic concepts before you jump start your first machine learning project. Maybe understand all of those basic bits that are still missing, and really focus on them before you proceed to anything else. Maybe focus more on the basic things like logistic regression, how a logistic regression classifier works, gradient descent, concepts like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, loss functions, so on and so forth. So if you can, follow a standard university level curriculum of all the basic things that they teach, maybe during the first, second, and third weeks, that should be pretty much good for you to proceed with. Again, this is a technique that I find to be very useful, that is following a certain kind of ratio, the ratio between the things that I already know and the learning opportunities that would come with the new project. So you shouldn't be repeating yourself. You should be looking for more learning opportunities as you are taking up on new projects. So here's the ratio that I follow. But when I was studying, the ratio was much left skewed. The ratio was 10 is to 90 probably. But yeah, ratios can always be adjusted, right? And feel free to come up with your own ratios and do adjust them over time as you progress in your machine learning journey. So as I mentioned before, machine learning is highly interdisciplinary, and you cannot be a master of everything at any given point in time. I mean, it's highly unlikely that you would be a master of everything at any given point in time. So focus on the basic parts that are still missing, and focus on the things that are extremely relevant for the project. For example, let's say your project is based on a classification problem. Maybe focus on the losses, the common loss functions that are important in a classification scenario. Maybe binary cross entropy, categorical cross entropy, so on and so forth. So focus on those basic parts from the different parts that your project includes, and then you should be pretty much good to proceed with. Also, while you're learning new things, don't rush it out. Take the time to understand those concepts, at least on an intuitive level. So here's the question that you would ask: so how much understanding is needed, right? So I tend to understand a new topic just enough to convince myself, and I know that understanding can always be iterated. For example, when you are starting learning machine learning, maybe the idea of supervised learning is something very new to you, and the way you would understand it uh, during that time would be much different when you are starting to becoming a pro in doing machine learning, right? So understand something just to a level that's enough for you to convince yourself, and do note that understanding can always be iterated. So yeah. And finally, here's a tweet that I very much liked along these lines, and the tweet comes from uh, someone who is working at DeepMind, someone who started the OpenMind project, and someone who is doing his PhD at Oxford. So I'd let you read the tweet, and yeah, I have linked all of this in the deck itself, and I'll anyway be sharing the link to the deck so that you can refer to it time to time. So yeah. So before we proceed to the next section, I would quickly like to see if we have got any questions. Okay, we have got a couple of one. Let's see. Vaibhav asks, "Sir, I had tried a lot myself, but still fobs." I don't know what that means. That I don't know anything. What should I do? Vaibhav, I don't know if you are, if you are humble to yourself, but you can always validate your understanding by taking part in Kaggle competitions or working in a real-time project. So executing a project would be the best thing to validate your skills. Python versus Go for deployment. Yeah, if you are more of a Docker guy, definitely give Go a go. But for when it comes to machine learning, really Python makes it very comfortable for you to try different things and experiment with them in a very fast manner. So the next question is machine learning all about learning a framework like TensorFlow, Keras, or PyTorch? Absolutely not. I'd keep it short and simple. Absolutely not. Competitive programming or ML? Please help. I guess that depends on the things that you are interested. I am more of an applied guy. I have always been interested in executing stuff, and of course, competitive programming. There's absolutely no ignorance or negligence to competitive programming. It really can enhance your problem solving skills, and when you are trying to execute a project, there can be many problems, and those problem solving skills can really shine when you are in that phase. So yeah. Okay, someone has already answered, Shudipto or Shudipta. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. Question. Yeah, I guess I answered that question. Development versus ML versus competitive coding. I mean, if you are more interested in enhancing your problem solving skills via taking part in coding competitions, feel free to do that. Or if you want to learn the art of problem solving by executing a real time project, feel free to do that. So the life is yours, right? uh, okay, I have trained few models from scratch, stack, I don't know, using linear regression and gradient descendant. It's gradient descent. Okay, is range scores enough to get started, or what should I do next? If you have completed ranges machine learning course, the Stanford Coursera one, that's great. That's absolutely great, right? uh, how much time would it take to learn the basic concepts properly? I can train a model by copying a few lines of code, but I don't know the math properly yet. So yeah, now would be a good time to consider more on learning the under the hood parts. Maybe it depends on your skills. I am not a very math geeky nerdy person, so I take the time out. Just as I mentioned, don't rush things out. Take the time to understand it and ask questions in the data science and machine learning community forums if you do not understand a particular concept. So I guess we can stop taking questions at this point in time and let's proceed. Okay, so the next challenge was to how should I choose a problem statement that's suitable for applying machine learning and stuff like that, and how should I choose the problem statement in the first place? Because you so there are many common solutions like library management system, attendance tracking system, traffic monitoring system, and so on. You can always find holes in the existing systems and try improving them. But if you were to uh, find a problem that's comparatively very new, so you might want to start by taking a look at your surroundings, the places you visit, trying to discover what are the problems in them, the platforms you interact with daily, and so on, and try figuring out if there are any problems, and just figure out if those problems are solvable using machine learning or not. So I spend quite a lot of time daily on archive. So archive is an open source repository for hosting scientific papers. So the problem that I once was trying to solve was predicting different categories given an archive paper title. So so the way I could come up with the problem was by interacting with the platform closely and trying to figure out if this is actually a problem and if there was an existing solutions. So another problem that I could come up with in this way was building a spam comment classification system for DataCamp's community. I'm sure you have heard about DataCamp by now. If not, feel free to give them a check. But so there's a community forum of DataCamp, and where where you would find technical articles around data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so forth. So there's a comment section as well. But many a times I've seen that the comments are not very relevant to the article that's being displayed and stuff. So So I was interested in building a spam comment classification system, and the existing spam detection systems wouldn't work here because the data was very different. So I along with one of my college juniors, I went on to collect data. We manually labeled them, trained a model, and reached out to the data camp folks, and they highly appreciated it. So it's now a part of my resume as well. So I have gotten you know good I have received appreciation for completing that project. So yeah. And of course, you won't be really using a hammer to kill a rat or an ant even. So the idea here is to try to figure out if the problem is really for machine learning, because you won't really solve the problem of prime numbers and stuff using machine learning. So spend some time around figuring out if the problem statement is friendly for machine learning. So here's a course that I have linked that would help you to do that. So it's very important. It's really very important, because if a problem can be solved using complex if else blocks and for loops and stuff, you wouldn't be you wouldn't want to use machine learning there, because you will save a lot of cost and time by doing that. So yeah. And of course, participate in Kaggle competitions, but don't just chase the leaderboard. These days we have many leaderboard probing techniques, which which can get you to the top of the leaderboard without doing anything much. But yeah, Kaggle is getting stricter day by day. So my suggestion would be to not just focus on the leaderboard. Always try to think of the bigger picture that that the problem statement of the competition is catering to. So that will help you to maybe develop a novel project around it. And if you are interested in learning about doing machine learning in creative ways, here's a website that you gotta check. So yeah. So now we would be proceeding towards the phase where we are actually executing our machine learning project. Let's just assume we are actually in the execution phase. But as always, I'd quickly like to check if we have got some questions. Yeah, DataCamp is an online data science education platform. Okay, let's see. What is a good starting point for a machine learning project? I guess I described it already. Sir, can you please describe what should be done in ML, like having done algorithms, regression, SVM, what we have to do more? Yeah, now it's a good time to put your skills to practice, right? Maybe take part in Kaggle competitions, but be very careful about not just chasing the leaderboard. Maybe, uh, do a project around it. Start with existing projects and, find their loopholes and try to improve upon them. The best course, will it be fine to do deep learning? So Janath, you see, if I ask you who is the best cricket player in the world, you cannot really answer questions like this. These are very relative questions. The Andrew Young deep learning course, is that fine? Yeah, that's a very good course. In fact, the entire specialization is amazing. I personally have taken that, so I can really vouch for that. Some good resource for ML, there are many actually. So internet is your friend. But yeah, the deeplearning.ai specialization for specifically deep learning, that I highly recommend. And another course that I highly recommend is Practical Deep Learning for Coders by Fast AI. From where to learn about maths concepts like linear algebra. So there's a course on Coursera called Mathematics for Machine Learning. It's offered by Imperial College of London. So it's an amazing course. For building project on image processing, what are the basic concepts that I need to know? Okay, so follow some blog posts on pyimagesearch.com, pi for Python, image for image, and search for search, pyimagesearch.com. You will have a pretty good starting point as to what concepts are needed to put together a nice image pricing project. DataCamp, yeah, I already mentioned. Can you give some idea about ML projects that new interns are assigned at a startup? I guess it depends. If it depends on the kind of organization and also the bandwidth the organization is currently holding. Maybe even if you join Google as a machine learning engineer, you might not be working in the research team. You, if things go well, you might be working in the Google brain research team. It really depends on the organization, you know. So it's hard, it's very hard to answer those kind of stuff. So it also depends on the kind of interview that you give. If you are a pro, if you are someone that has already published a number of research papers, has already contributed to a very popular open source machine learning framework, maybe you'd be assigned to a relatively more complex project. So yeah, I guess we can proceed to the next section. So yeah, so let's just assume we are in the phase of executing the machine learning project. So yeah, here are some thoughts. So as I mentioned before, there are lots of moving parts when you are working in a machine learning project. So how you should, you know, prioritize on some of them and ignore the rest for the time being. So I like to follow, you know, a sequential flow like this to really validate myself at which stage of the project I am. So maybe, you know, I'm done defining the machine learning, defining the problem statement for my project. Now I would need to construct the data set, and then I should proceed about transforming the data and stuff. So maybe you have already collected the data, and if you follow a sequential flow like this, you would easily, you know, catch up on the steps that are needed to be followed. So always try to follow a sequential uh, flow like this. It would, you know, it will make you not only more disciplined, and also it will help you to execute your project in a very structured manner. And of course, data is the better half of any machine learning model. There's no argument to that. And how should I collect data? So there can be instances where you wouldn't have the data in the first place. Maybe an example would be, there's no standard data set of Zomato reviews and Zomato comments for a particular restaurant. Maybe you should, you know, scrape the Zomato website to put together comments and their associated reviews and stuff. And there are other resources like Kaggle and Google Dataset search engine and stuff, which can help you to, you know, find out existing data sets real quickly. And as I mentioned, uh, I had manually collected data before, and there can be instances where you need to just manually bootstrap the data collection process. So yeah. So of course, before, you know, putting that effort of web scraping or manually collecting data, always ask questions like this. Maybe there is a similar data set available you are not aware of. Maybe, so ask questions in the community. Is there a similar data set available, and here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. It would be great if you could, you know, help me out and stuff. And you can always do some basic upfront research from your end to find out the data sets that are similar to the problem statement that you are trying to solve. So yeah. So it's absolutely important to understand the different traits, regularities, and irregularities about the data. Otherwise, you won't be able to, you know, come up with a machine learning model that really excels at the modeling task, right? So you need to know about the uh, irregularities about the data, the noise that the data might contain, the class imbalance that the data might contain, what's the distribution of a particular feature in the data set that you are working with. So things like this you should be, you know, sure about, and asking questions like whether my data points are linearly separable or not and stuff, and also guiding the modeling process in a data driven way. So if you ask questions like this, you will have a better standpoint to proceed with the machine learning modeling tasks. So here's an article that can really help you with that. It's a pretty comprehensive article, so be sure to give it a check. And it's an article, in fact, written by me. So yeah, feel free to, you know, share your feedback with me. And here comes my most favorite piece of the cake. That's machine learning model. That's machine learning modeling. Who doesn't like to, you know, train machine learning models and dragons? Just kidding. So yeah, modeling has to be the favorite step in the entire pipeline, at least for me. So here are some questions that I often ask. Which model should I choose? Maybe we are dealing with an image classification problem now. There are lots of pre-trained models already available: MobileNet, ResNet, VGG16, Inception v3, and so forth. Maybe it depends on your infrastructure and budget. If you have got a lot of computational resources and stuff, maybe start with VGG16. And if you don't have that much budget, maybe MobileNet or a lighter architecture would be helpful. And also, when it comes to doing machine learning for tabular data sets, maybe mix and match between different models like SVM, logistic regression, KNN, random forest, and so on. So there's this saying called no free lunch theorem for machine learning models, which says that for data set X, you cannot absolutely say for sure that model Y would definitely work. You will have to come to that conclusion by thoroughly experimenting with different models, right? So often machine learning is more alchemy than science. So always, try to experiment with stuff and come up with your own conclusions. So start with an hypothesis and then validate it with the virtue of experimentation. So how should I train a model? Of course, there are many training paradigms. Maybe you'd want to incorporate distributed training. Maybe you'd want to, make the training faster. Maybe come up with optimized data input pipelines and stuff. So now would be a good time while you are doing modeling to consider questions like this. So here are some more specific questions along those lines. How can I train my model faster? Maybe there's a bottleneck while the data is getting fed to your machine learning model. Maybe there's some lag in the IO processes and stuff. Maybe you would want to focus more on optimizing the data input pipeline and thereby speeding up the model training process. So maybe I could use better optimizers and regularizers so that my model really trains well and thereby enhancing the generalizability of my model. And how should I validate my model? And of course, for classification tasks, accuracy is a very favorite thing for all of us. But for an imbalanced classification problem, accuracy might not be the perfect metric to convey, because even if the model is 100% accurate, it might fail to detect positives, uh, the positive classes. So it's very important to consider the precision and recall metrics in cases like this. So it depends on the problem statement and the data set that you are working with, and based on that you should be able to experiment and conclude that, okay, this is the validation metric I should be chasing for. And of course, debugging in machine learning systems differs a lot from traditional software engineering debugging and stuff. And debugging a machine learning system is hard, is genuinely hard. I will flat out admit that, right? Because a machine learning model can fail you silently. It will not give you errors like null pointer exceptions, array index out of a bound exception, and stuff. So the idea here is to not make any mistakes in the first place. I mean, be very attentive while you are writing the training loops, while you are writing your customized layers and stuff, because even a small mistake can cause you a lot. So it's a good idea to not make any mistakes in the first place. Maybe run your model on a very small batch of data and see if the things are working well, and then kickstart the longer training process. So yeah. And here's a course that can really help you in enhancing your machine learning model debugging skills. So I have linked them in the deck. And also ask questions to yourself. So someone from the participants was asking this, TensorFlow JS or TensorFlow in general. So ask, while you are executing your machine learning project, let's say you are done training your machine learning model, see if your machine learning model integrates well with other systems. Maybe use your machine learning model to build a website, a machine learning powered website. Maybe build a mobile application, maybe deploy it on a microcontroller and see if it performs well. So even if you do not know about web development and mobile development and stuff, it gives you a lot of collaboration opportunities, right? Maybe you could reach out to your to your friend who is good at web development, maybe ask him, hey, I have a trained model and here's what it does. So maybe you could, try help me in integrating in a good looking website or a good performing website. So it gives you a lot of, opportunities for collaboration. So web application, mobile application, Raspberry Pi, and the possibilities are really endless here. So yeah. And think about the other components of your project, not just the machine learning side of things, because in a machine learning project, the machine learning code base can be really small, right? It can be really small, as you can see in the picture itself, right? And this is coming from a Google research paper, so you know that it's coming from good people. So the paper's name is Hidden Technical Data in Machine Learning Systems. So you can find that here itself. So I've linked all the necessary stuff in the deck. So there are other things in a machine learning project to consider: feature extraction, process management tools, data verification, and whatnot, right? So when you are done training your machine learning model, maybe take one of these things and maybe learn it or integrate it in your project. Okay, so here's the final part of uh, uh, of the presentation. So how to present your project out there in the wild, because if you are not presenting your project in the right way, the world will not have the chance to see it, right, and provide you with feedback, which is really important. Maybe your potential employer could spot the project online, and they might want to reach out to you directly. So if your presentation of the project is really rusty, then it can cause you big time. So before we discuss these things, let me check if we have any questions. Okay. Uh, can you text image processing website? I don't know how to text it. Maybe I could share it. Okay, let me share it. One sec. Let me share it. Let me share it. Let me share it. So this is the site pyimagesearch.com for you know image pricing, for learning computer vision image pricing and stuff. Pyimagesearch.com. uh okay, so the next question is, can I build spam website detector using machine learning? Of course you can. Of course, in fact, I recently did a project with Manning, which you can check out. It's live. It in fact got released today. So yeah. So if you go to sayak.dev, sayak.dev, if you go to authoring, if you go to this stuff, using machine learning to detect phishing websites, I guess phishing websites are very closely related to spamming websites, so you would get the idea, right? So here's a project already along those lines. Maybe you could find some loopholes in the project, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Okay, kindly comment that website. I do not have access to the comments because I am presenting from StreamYard. So yeah, maybe I would share these things with uh, Rishabh. Maybe he could share with you folks. Yeah. Can we use Django to deploy our model? Absolutely. In fact, I recently wrote a book which uses Django a lot. So the book's name is Hands-on uh, Python Deep Learning for Web. So it uses Django and Flask primarily. So Anubhav, my co-author, coded those parts. But yeah, you can always use Django or Flask if you want. Okay. I am currently good at mobile and web development. Is it a good idea to invest my time in learning machine learning? For that, I will have to go back, to this slide. This slide. So I think an important part of life satisfaction is to find the things that really motivate you. So yeah, I'll just keep it there. I guess you are, qualified enough to get the crux out of it. Hey, let me close back. Which object tracking algorithm should I use to track rugby ball after detection? Oh, okay. So yeah, ball tracking by image search. So rather than I answer this question, we already have a blog post of this. So I work at PyImage search, as I mentioned. So ball tracking with OpenCV, if you search it online, the first link would be the one that we released. So I guess that answers your question, Shweta. Do certificate will get? I don't know that. Sir, I know how implement algorithm using scikit-learn. Now what should I do next? Maybe consider implementing them from scratch using NumPy. Can I build a project which includes both Android and ML? Of course you can. Of course. TensorFlow slash light slash examples. Let's see. So most of these are, mobile applications which are using machine learning. So yeah, you can absolutely use Android and machine learning at the same place. Okay, so Shweta, that might give you an opportunity to improve and find loopholes and improvise on the project. We just give enough resources for to you to get started, and that should be pretty much it. You can of course optimize most of the OpenCV models by taking advantage of the hardware accelerators and stuff. So yeah, you should be good to go from there. Not suitable for real time as it has low fps. Of course it has low fps. So OpenCV indeed is sometimes slow, especially the python variant, but you might want to try out the C++ variant and see, and maybe try parallelizing different threads, maybe uh, you know uh, take the inputs in a separate thread and process all the data and run the inference in a separate thread. It might give you better performance. And of course, if you are using Intel architectures, you might want to use OpenVINO's version of OpenCV. It's highly optimized. So yeah, what are the projects possible with OpenCV? So yeah, I would refer you to PyImage search. It has got a lot of real world projects, so feel free to give that a check. How can we use ML prediction algo in our Node.js web API? TensorFlow.js is your best friend. How to explore NLP and use machine learning in it? Uh, yeah, so there's this course called Natural Language Processing by TensorFlow folks. If you search about it, natural language processing, TensorFlow in practice. Yeah, natural language pricing in TensorFlow. It is a very good course. It's offered by uh, deeplearning.ai, and Lawrence Meroni teaches this course, and it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, how should I merge machine learning with Flutter application and with Firebase? Yeah, of course, good question. So if you search awesome TF Lite, so see, mobile application is not my area of expertise. So if you go to awesome TF Lite GitHub repository, you will be able to find a number of examples, which uses ML kit in a Flutter application. So yeah, okay. I want to learn about speech recognition. Where should I begin? Giant, speech recognition is not my area of expertise. Maybe you could ask this in a machine learning community. They should be able to help you out, and I will link most of my favorite communities later in the discussion. So yeah, which are good projects to contribute in open source as a beginner? TensorFlow, definitely. TensorFlow has got covered everyone. For mobile application, use TensorFlow Lite. Of course, use TensorFlow Lite. I highly vouch for that. Okay, now we might run out of time, so just so that that does not happen, let's proceed. So now that your project is out in the wild, you are done executing your project. So the first thing you should be doing is give your, GitHub repository a proper structure. Now you might be using other version control tools, and you should be using version control tools for, for keeping track of your projects. And start with a structure. Start by structuring your open source repository on any version control system that you might be using. But yeah, do that. Definitely polish the structure of your repository. Be sure to add a very good readme, so that it gives so that it gives the viewers a very good understanding of what the project is all about and stuff. And yeah, a polished directory structure, as I mentioned. So here's a structure that I follow. It's inspired from Josh Tobin, an ex OpenAI employee. So yeah, feel free to refer to it and use it accordingly in your projects. Write out a blog post, focusing on the challenges that you tried to solve, what kind of problems your project caters to and stuff. And all the necessary and nitty-gritty details about your project should go into a blog post. And that gives you a tremendous way to present your showcase your project in a very detailed way. That's really amazing. A good blog post can really stand out. So if you know about distill publication, for a well written blog post they can award you up to $10,000. So yeah, it's no joke. So feel free to check out distill publication. But the idea is, write out a very detailed blog post around the project, and yeah, be sure to share it with the world. So here are some paid writing opportunities for you folks. If you have got any interesting machine learning projects that you would want to share with the world and get paid at the same time, so here are some opportunities for you. Share your project with the communities. And here are the communities that I really love and respect and admire. Kaggle, absolutely. Artificial intelligence and deep learning, probably the largest Facebook group in the field. Of course, Twitter. Most of the folks that I follow for keeping myself updated with the field are share all of their works on Twitter, and constantly they get feedback on their work from other machine learning folks. And also fast AI forums are amazing. Some really intelligent people hang out there. So yeah, these four communities are just spot on. And of course, be open to constructive feedback. I can definitely understand that your project is very dear to you. You have put a lot of blood and sweat while executing it, but constructive feedback can really help to improvise your project itself. So be open to taking constructive feedback, and be open to acting on them. So here are some departing thoughts. Figure out what really interests you, because machine learning itself is really big. You might want to focus on better training techniques. You might want to focus on building better data input pipelines and stuff. And machine learning is a huge field, right? So focus on specific things. And here is, I run an interview series. So here are some interviews that might be of interest to you, and it will definitely help you to uh, gain some more insights from machine learning practitioners, researchers, and scientists. So discuss your work with like-minded folks, and constantly seek for feedback from them and stuff. And here's a principle that I follow to this date. Apply the principle of applying, learning, making mistakes, and repeat. Because if you are you know if you are if you are not ready to make mistakes, you are not allowing yourself to learn from it. So it's important to follow that process of applying, learning, making mistakes, and having a dauntless mindset to repeat that. So, and here's my pinned tweet. I'm kind of active on Twitter. I share my favorite stuff on machine learning almost on a regular basis and stuff. So I'm always open for discussing good stuff in machine learning, of course, via email, Twitter, or anything that you would like. And yeah, and the deck is available here. I will share this with Rishabh as well, so that he can share it with broader audience. And I will tweet it out from my Twitter profile as well. So the URL is bit.ly/dloop20. It's simple. And Rising Sayak is my Twitter ID. So yeah, feel free to. I would love to connect with you, with all of you folks. So yeah, I'll quickly see now if we have any questions. Computer vision versus NLP, what's today's trend? So both are pretty hot trends, both are pretty hot trends. If you follow Google Photos, again a classic example of computer vision. If you follow automatic word suggestion while you are typing in your mobile keyboard, that's again an example of natural language understanding and stuff. So maybe experiment with some of the applications from both the worlds and see what interests you. I'm learning machine learning since 3 to 4 months. What problem should I try to have to better grip over concepts? Yeah, of course, try taking part in Kaggle competitions, newer Kaggle competitions, to apply your hard-earned skills. Uh, okay. How can we switch to machine learning career from mobile app developer? So don't force feed it. If you are really interested in machine learning, you will anyway be able to do it. Maybe start with the basic things, maybe start to get a feel around machine learning, maybe take certain course like practical machine learning for coders by fast AI. It will jumpstart your machine learning feel and stuff, just by making you executing machine learning projects first. So once you have that feel and once you start feeling comfortable with that, maybe that would be a good thing to consider. Yeah, same question. Yeah, so I guess I answered it. So we have 4 more minutes, and as I mentioned, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, and all my coordinates are basically there, be it email, be it GitHub, be it LinkedIn and stuff. You can use any of the platforms and reach out to me. So yeah, I guess I will wait for 2 more minutes and then we can call it a day off. Learned ML, but what to apply it? I don't get what to implement. Yeah, Kaggle, definitely. Take part in a Kaggle competition and see how to apply your machine learning concepts, or maybe take a look at your surroundings and try to figure out what problems are there, what problems are already existing and stuff. So yeah. I want to use Kalman filter to track object. Yeah, go ahead and do that. What's stopping you from not doing that? Is it important to know all the math and algorithms behind the module? So yeah, I'll repeat myself here. Maybe uh, if you take a look at this, so here's where I answered that question. How much should I know before I start my machine learning project? Just the basic thing. Absolutely, you cannot be a master of everything and all the math stuff and things. Just understand those things on an intuitive level, and the details can always be iterated as you proceed. Cool. Where to find project? Yeah, Kaggle again. Kaggle is amazing. Is it important to know all the math? Yeah, done. How much maths for ML? So uh, if you were a science student in your high school, if you are familiar with concepts like linear algebra, matrix multiplication, to be very specific, differential calculus, and basic central tendencies like standard deviation, means and stuff, you should be pretty much good to go, since all the ready-made libraries are making ML easy. But how to understand the core concepts? Yeah, of course. So when you are learning about a particular concept, maybe use only NumPy and try implementing from scratch, and yeah, that should give you a pretty firm ground. Should I go with DataCamp for complete data science learning? I wouldn't suggest DataCamp because it's not really a thorough platform, I would say. Maybe start with the applied data science specialization on Coursera, that's a pretty good one. Then you can again come back to datacam to aid your learning. So one more question. I am in a very difficult situation. I want to learn app development, web development, ML, game development. uh, when I start learning a technology, my mind is forcing me to learn another. Yeah, you got to stop that thing. You cannot be a master of all. You know, it's a a hard fact, because if you tend to become a grocery shop, you will not end up being a specialized person of one specific thing. You will really need to focus on specific things at one point in time and then proceed. You will need to control your fickle mindset there. Starting resources to learn ML from scratch. Yeah, Machine Learning for Coders by Fast AI, amazing course. Or Kaggle Learn, in fact, kaggle.com/learn, amazing course. With this, I think we can conclude. And thanks, folks, for joining today. And I'm really glad that I could make it. Hopefully, there was no nuances and stuff. And feel free to, give these things a check. Deck is available here. Feel free to, interact with me on Twitter and stuff. Uh, with this, I think we are pretty much good to go. And I guess the one that is handling StreamYard, maybe you could also, put out the link so that it's available to everyone. The link is bit.ly/dloop20. Basic things, right? Handling StreamYard and stuff. This was pretty important resource, I feel. Anyway, uh, okay. I hope you enjoyed the session and learned something. So thank you and take care.